Stray Cats are an American rockabilly band who are originally from New York. When they were formed in 1979, they started using a variety of names. Most of them involved the word cat or cats in some way. Sometimes they did this in order to be able to book consecutive nights at clubs who wouldn't do that for the same band and to fool the owners. They didn't solidly settle on the name the Stray Cats until 1983. Before that, in I think 1980, they heard that there was a Teddy Boy revival in the UK and they upped it and moved to London. Soon they were popular. They were being seen by members of high profile Brit rock bands like Led Zeppelin and being approached by record labels. So then they sold singles, they sold albums, they had a sporadic on and off existence that I really can't be bothered to chart for you. They're officially on at the moment with the original three members. Hi, my name is Dan. So this was the first album by Stray Cats, and it's my first listen to it. And I need to do a little bit of housekeeping first to kind of explain the Acclaimed music listing for this. So it's listed on the Acclaimed music site, as you know, or if you don't know. Excuse me, this is the list that I'm following, working my way up from 3,000 to one of the 3,000 greatest albums of all time. And occasionally they list albums with more than one name. Sometimes that's because an album genuinely has more than one name. Sometimes because it's been re-released almost in its entirety with a new name. Sometimes, as in this case, it's a little bit more tenuous, the connection between them, but let me explain. So Stray Cats was a UK album in 1981, which was their first album. Gonna Ball was their second UK album, which was also released in 1981. Built for Speed was an American released album in 1982, which was compiled from the best half track from the first two of those. So I tend to, when we have these situations with Acclaimed music, I tend to take the view that maybe the best intention here is to review the original. Uh, Occasionally, if there's a revised version, I will review that if I think that the artist is behind the revised version and it's more true to their vision than the original in some way. I don't think that this is anything in that kind of thing, so I'm reviewing that original album, Stray Cats. Okay, right, so here we get into the album. It's rockabilly with a kind of a bit punk edge, but most of it I wouldn't say is full on what I might call punkabilly. It's also got elements of ska in here, especially in the track Ubangi Stomp, which is quite a good track, I have to say. Um, there's it was interesting in my listening sequence because it was back to back with the Chuck Berry album that I reviewed a couple of reviews ago, and just as a quick window into my process here. So I like to listen to albums twice. Generally, what I do is I listen once, then do some reading, and then listen again. Sometimes it's a little bit more confused than that, just because of circumstances. I also try to listen in two different circumstances or two different sets settings if I can. But what I do tend to do is quite a lot of my first listen is in the car as I commute. I've got a half an hour each way commute every day, and this is one of the reasons why I started reviewing albums, was to give me something to do during this commute that made life more interesting. Um, and so I tend to do these in batches. You might have noticed that I tend to be wearing the same thing for 4, 5, 6 reviews in a days. And that was the case with this. So I actually happened to listen to the Chuck Berry album, whatever it was called, St. Louis to Liverpool, and this straight after it. And then in my second listen, I did the same because I listened to the Chuck Berry album and then this when I had a massive pile of washing up to do at home. And it took me both of these albums to finish that washing up. Um, so it all that is a long way around of saying I've listened to this straight after I've listened to Chuck Berry, and there are obvious parallels to make with Chuck Berry here in that he's rock and roll and this is rockabilly, which is very, very close. in style, I would say. So this is we've got here double bass. We've got twangy guitar, which is really well played. I have to say, faster and better than older rockabilly. This is quite impressive. And drums, of course. And I haven't got much to say about the drums. And of course, singing. So it's got some classic, or what now feel like classic rockabilly sounds. So a couple of very percussive sounds, particularly. So rim shot clicks from the drums to give a kind of clicky effect, and also a similar kind of clicky effect on the guitar using what's called palm mutes, like a tick, 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 to get these kind of picky notes rather than notes that ring through. And doubling or using a very fast echo so that you get the kind of the vocal twice. And this was the thing that particularly came through in rockabilly in the 50s and 60s. So it owes quite a lot to Eddie Cochran, Jerry Lee Lewis, Carl Perkins, that kind of stuff, and to a lesser extent Elvis, but it's moved it on. And I like this idea that this rockabilly revival that kind of happened, well, kind of happened, definitely did happen. At the same time, move rockabilly on somewhat to make it a slightly different sound. Um, this was, I remember at the time that Stray Cats, I do remember 1980. I was 15 at the time. That dates me very precisely. And I remember that they were well regarded by my peers as as a legitimate kind of acceptable band. They were much more acceptable to people of my age than Shaking Stevens was, who was also at the same time. I was also rockabilly. Everybody kind of, well, not everybody. Some people thought of him as an Elvis copy. It was more of a British phenomenon than anywhere, and I believe he had more British hits than Elvis did, and they had had a huge success. Anyway, at that sort of time, people kind of my age would sneer at Shaky, but would not sneer at Stray Cats. In fact, generally people liked Stray Cats. So, uh, some songs on here I want to pick out. Rock This Town is apparently their most famous song from here. The Stray Cats Strut is a great song. It's pretty well known. Nice chord sequence. I've always enjoyed that descending chord sequence in there. And it opens with Runaway Boy, and I really like Runaway Boy as a track. It's just a great, infectious, get your feet twitching kind of feel. So it's generally got this feel about it being live and rocking. And some of the songs are basically about life and rocking. Storm the Embassy is about the Iran hostage crisis, but that's about the extent of really of serious content on here. Most of the rest is fairly light-hearted. It feels as a whole like a triumph of getting a good feel and get some good playing over production values. And I know that punk, part of the kind of whole thing of punk was to reject the idea that everything has to be massively produced. And so this isn't massively produced, but it is good. It's not bad. Uh, and I think that, yeah, sorry about the pause. I was reading my notes. I think that what has happened here is they've managed to resist their recording of being more than just them, or of having, overdubs and studio trickery. And presumably as a result, this is a fairly faithful reproduction of what they might have been like on stage as well. I don't know. I never saw them. So I enjoyed it. It's fun. It's infectious. It's quite versatile. It's fairly varied. It's not particularly sophisticated in musical terms or in production terms, but in it's kind of it's clever in other ways. It's clever in style and feel, and it's charming. So yeah, I enjoyed it. As always, we've got to the point now where I'm going to invite you to tell me what you think of this album. So please do share that by leaving a comment. The next review on this channel is going to be of the album Nancy and Lee by Nancy Sinatra and Lee Hazelwood. But that's it from me for now.
Get kicked out for coming home at dawn. Mom and Dad cursed the day you were born. Throw your clothes into a duffel bag. Shouting and slam the door, the whole bit's a drag. Who can I turn to? Where can I stay?